welcome to the Sexy Nerd Podcast, where we explore the intersection of intelligence and sensuality. With your host, me, Tim Baxter. I'm a licensed counselor, and I'm a sex nerd. Join us as we dive into the world of nerdy pursuits and how they can enhance your sex life. Get ready to seek out and geek out and get steamy with us on the Sexy Nerd Podcast. All right, welcome to the Sexy Nerd Podcast, where we dive deep into the fascinating intersections of life, love, and human connection. I'm your host, Tim Baxter, and a certified sex therapist with a passion for unraveling the complexities of intimacy and nerd culture. Today, we are going to be exploring a few topics that are profound. Like, none of us would be here without them profound, okay? We're going to talk about motherhood. Then we're going to talk about menopause and best part, sexuality, because this is the Sex Nerd Podcast. So what I really want to look at is how does the transformative journey of becoming a mother or entering menopause shape a woman's sense of self, of desire, and erotic identity? From navigating societal expectations to reclaiming pleasure in the midst of a sleepless night and endless caregiving, we're here to spark an honest and nerdy and maybe even a little sexy conversation about it, all with Dawn Moore. So let me tell you a bit about Miss Moore. She's pretty interesting person. Miss Dawn Moore is the founder of Mama Comes First, a pioneering sexual wellness platform for mothers of all stages, backgrounds, and identities. She is also a triple board certified advanced nurse practitioner specializing in mental health and women's health. She's a sex educator, a midwife, and a mom of 4, ages 5 to 18.
Yep.
Okay. Through education, community, and bold advocacy, Dawn is on a mission to help mothers break free from the patriarchal capitalistic norms that keep them exhausted, isolated, and in line. I hate that fucking word. She believes that sexual liberation for mothers is an integral part of our world's collective liberation, because when empowered mothers come together, systems of oppression come apart. So one more thing. So I want to read this, but I want to go into some of this too, because I love this, right? So when Dawn is not revolutionizing motherhood, you might find her tending to her plants, redecorating her home and camper, or bopping away at a music festival. She also runs a small photography business and used to be a circus and aerial artist. That is so cool, by the way. Okay. And she loves sunrises and sunsets, salads that she doesn't have to make because that's a pain in the ass, cold brew, chocolate, and you guessed it, orgasms. I want to ask because it does say it, but I want you to tell me, what are your favorite colors, Dawn?
I don't know what's on there. I think I don't know if you can see around me, but pink for sure, purple and rainbow and sparkles.
Rainbow and sparkles are her favorite colors. That's amazing. Woohoo! All right. So for anybody that doesn't know us on the Sexy Nerd Podcast, we do not like the patriarchy like at all, right? And that's not saying that we don't like real masculinity. We don't like toxic masculinity. People need to understand that there's a difference. Like, real masculinity wants to be there and be a partner with our female counterparts. Toxic masculinity wants them to be under our foot, and fuck that. Okay, anyway, so let's get started. Let's talk about motherhood and what you do. So tell me a little bit about Mama Comes First.
Yeah. I have a long answer and a short answer. I'm going to try to condense the two. I've done this a few times now where I feel like I've solidified the answer. So Mama Comes First, like you said, is a sexual health and wellness platform for moms by moms. Currently, the moms that it's by are just me. The goal is to build it into a bigger platform where there are different types of sexual health experts, motherhood experts that come and they, write blogs. We do education, so different like videos, classes, things like that. Right now, the two main services that we offer, and I keep saying we, it's me. um, I have it is called the Liberated Libido, Matrescence and Motherhood Liberated Libido. So it's an 8-week course that just kind of walks moms at any stage of motherhood through their sexuality and like figuring out what do they like, what's going right, what's not going right, how can we fix it? And we also touch on the political systems that are involved that make sex kind of like a shitty thing for the majority of mothers, or maybe not a shitty thing, but like a taboo thing. So that's the one service we have right now. I also offer individualized coaching. I do not do couples coaching. I specifically work with mothers. And so, yeah, so the goal right now is to just build it up into something bigger. This summer, we're launching the community called the MILF Club. The MILF Club, MILF stands for Mothers into Libido Freedom. So that was a way of like reclaiming a term that is used to objectify mothers and, use it on our own terms. So the goal there is to create community because I think community is one of the most important things, and it's what mothers need. And the patriarchy literally burned our villages down hundreds of years ago. So my goal there is to bring back the village. Also within that community, the goal there is to have different experts within, motherhood and sexual health come and give webinars and such. But yeah, right now, the biggest focus that I've had in the last year or so of launching is just kind of education, growing my audience on Instagram, growing my email list, things like that. The backstory to Mama Comes First is I am a midwife. Like you said, I'm a women's health nurse practitioner, a mental health nurse practitioner, and I have been working with mothers for the last 13 years in various roles. And a lot of what I do as a nurse and then as a provider is provide sexual health services. And what I found over the years was a lot of patients would come in and they weren't coming into me for anything like specific sexual health related, but just in our conversations, whether it was through like an annual GYN exam or like prenatal appointments or postpartum appointments, sex was always just kind of put on the back burner, or they were having these problems and they just felt like they weren't not allowed, but they didn't feel like they were important enough to talk about. Like, I'm leaking pee every time I laugh, sneeze, cough. And of course, if somebody's leaking pee, of course, that's going to affect your sex life and how you feel about yourself. Or the most shocking thing to me was the first time I met somebody who told me they had never had an orgasm, yet they had given birth 3 times. I think my jaw was on the floor because in my brain, I was a provider and I knew that this was a possibility, but never had really considered it. And moving forward from that, since that patient, I constantly ask anybody that walks in my door, like, do you have orgasms? Do you experience pleasure? And I realize how many people like don't actually experience pleasure during sex or orgasm, which is so frustrating to me because they've gone through growing human and, arguably one of the most painful experiences that you can have, and they've never experienced one of the most pleasurable experiences that they can have. So there was a lot of years of this kind of, I wasn't planning on starting something, but then fast forward, I have another business that I run that is coaching for moms for different areas, not necessarily sex related. And I kept having clients have the same issue. And it was going back to their sex life. And again, they were brushing it off, but it was impacting their relationship, their sense of self. And so I was like, you know what, let me create a program so I can reach more people, because I was having the same like underlying issue for all these clients. And I was like, I'm giving them the same information. Like, let me just put it in a program out there so people don't have to book me to coach. They can just take it for themselves. And in my search for specific resources that had to do with sex in motherhood, I realized that there are very few. There are websites that are sex related that may mention little blips about moms. And then there's motherhood websites and resources that may mention a little bit about sex. But all of those resources in general kind of sucked. Like, they were just scratching the surface of what I knew. So I did what anybody would do. I was like, I guess I need to create this platform. And so that's really how Mama Comes First came to fruition. And like I said, the goal has always been about building community, education, and then just providing support just to help moms through their whole sexual lifespan. So like my training is in women's health. So I have specialty training from menarche when you get your first period all the way through menopause.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I do. I also work a regular jobs, multiple regular, what I call them my paycheck jobs in addition. So it's kind of it's a side project, but it's also like a full-time side project. Like I'm never not working on it, but things take way longer because of my grown-up jobs that get in the way.
Yeah, those dadgum pesky grown-up jobs.
Yes.
So I work, I have a side practice that is my practice that, and my practice is basically doing contract work for other couples therapy organizations to do sex therapy, and that's my side hustle, right? Because everybody got to have a side hustle.
Yep.
And then my 9 to 5, really, it's working as a home and community based therapist for children and families to work
Oh,
on
nice.
behaviors and things like that. And when we get into when we talk about pleasure and women not being able to um, have orgasms or not being able to have pleasure and things like that, it's really hard to model good, healthy sexual behavior when you're not having that good, healthy sexual functioning, right? Like,
Yep.
and I won't. I'll put a lot of it on our education, like what we don't know, and then I put a lot of it on the toxically masculine men. So the toxically masculine men who think that their junk and penis and vaginal penetration is the end all be all to sex, and that's, as we know, that's incorrect. In fact, most women aren't going to orgasm through strictly penis and vagina intercourse, and we know that, like the professionals do. And so one of my missions in life is to try to teach more and more men, hey, your junk ain't it, man. Like let's work on other things. And hey, you know what brings people to orgasm the best is, foreplay starts in the mind. It doesn't
Yep.
start on the body, it starts in the mind. So like when I go up to my wife every day, it's a simple kiss on the neck and saying, God, you're beautiful, I love you, I enjoy you as a person, right? And I absolutely find you incredibly sexy. But a lot of it is just that, conversating with your significant other, and especially when they are mothers. Like my wife's a mom, right? She's got grown kids, and now we're grandparents, which is weird,
Wild.
but it is what it is, right? But like, and she needs to know, like, that I appreciate her mind, body, and soul. So like I try to integrate all of that whenever I'm talking to her, and I'm honest, I'm a big perv, so I'm not going to say I don't grab her by the butt occasionally and things like that, but it's all worked out, and we've already talked about consent, and she
Great.
knows that if she ever is uncomfortable with that, she can let me know and I'll stop doing it. That's how that works, right? Like it's all part of communication.
Yep.
And so the biggest tool in our arsenal, in my opinion, to give women, to help women, as men, to help women with being able to have orgasm is communication. That's
Yep.
the biggest tool in our arsenal. It's not your junk, it's not anything but communication. And once you get that down, then you can work on the other things and spend more time around men understanding the clitoral complex, because it's huge. It's not just a little button, it's huge, right? And so if you understand all these, right, then you're going to be a little bit more helpful in pleasure. Right, exactly,
Got them
right.
everywhere. Yeah.
So
It always
like,
makes me laugh.
so I think for me, I think that's always been one of the things. Um, so I'm gonna show you too, because like I am. Oh, where's it at? Oh my God, no. So I also have a little one that's on my keychain, but apparently it's
Oh,
busted
fun.
off. But apparently it's busted off my keychain now, so now I'm gonna have to find it
Oh
somewhere. But anyways, I think for me, whenever I talk to people about that, like the thing that I talk to men mostly about, because I can break it down into kind of a nerdy way of saying things, because I love working with nerds. And I say, if you want to understand the basics of what the clitoral complex looks like, then I want you to research the flux capacitor from Back to the Future, because it's got that kind of same shape. And so that you get kind of an understanding that it's not just a little button, right? And when women say you can't find it, that's because you're just looking for a little button. So figure out what the hell you're doing, right? Like learn the map, right? And then you can have it.
Exactly.
Another thing I want to ask you about, because you had mentioned it, is that mothers, and let's just say women in general, right? They have for a very long time their own discovery of sexual empowerment has always been shamed. So when you're working with mothers, like, is that something that you're working with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't start out with the idea for Mama Comes First to have so much political influence in it. But when I was like figuring out how to educate people on like getting to the root of shame, I realized I have to teach people about these systems that are causing shame. So yeah, so we talk a lot about patriarchy because that's honestly where most of it comes from. Um, but yeah, and it just starts from like such a young age too, you know, just like not telling you the correct anatomical name for your vulva, your vagina, or like I grew up calling it a bunny, and I think about how dangerous that could have fucking been. And I think about kids who it actually is dangerous, where they're telling somebody, oh, yeah, my uncle played with my so and so, and they're not talking about an object. They're talking about being sexually assaulted as a child.
Right.
And these parents don't know because they couldn't, because they felt so much shame and embarrassment over talking about, you know, body parts. So yeah, so it starts really, really young. And then you get into, if you're lucky enough to have any sex ed, the girls and boys are typically separated, and the girls don't get pregnant. You're going to get an STI. And boys are like, okay, here's masturbation. It's probably normal. At least the boys, like where I was going to school, I know a lot of sex ed programs I've looked at kind of go in that direction. But there's no talk about, again, no talk about making sure you're using the correct body parts. I'm pretty sure in my sex ed, we talked about the vagina, not the vulva, even though we were talking about the entire structure. Um, and yeah, and so you get this like shitty sex education or lack of from like, almost like birth, I feel like. And even then, even going back to like toddlerhood, I think about boys when they play with themselves as toddlers. It's like, oh, isn't that so funny and so cute? And then the girls I've seen, I
Don't
nannied a
do
lot
that.
growing up. Yeah, don't do that. That's
Don't do
dirty.
that.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what are we doing? So yeah, it's just like these stages that start so young, and it's different for boys. Like, yes, I'm not saying every boy doesn't have some sort of shame, but like in general, girls are just getting like shame thrown at them from the time they come out of the womb.
Well, and you're not wrong. There is an extreme double standard, right? Like there's absolutely a double standard. You said we saw that in high school. We saw it
Yep.
like if the boy if the captain of the football team sleeps with a dozen women, then he's a stud. Or he's the big man on campus, right? Or
Yep.
if a girl does it, well, she's a slut, she's a whore. And I'm like, whoa, that's not accurate.
Right.
I don't like that. In fact, like I'm one of those weird guys, right? Like whenever I hear about like Islam and they're talking about, 72 virgins being the gift, right? And I'm like, that doesn't sound like a gift to me, right? Like I want an empowered woman. If my paradise is 72, well, if I wasn't married to like one of the best women in the planet, right? But but a paradise to me, it should be 72 sexually empowered women instead of 72 virgins who don't know shit about what they're doing.
Right. And who are probably very scared and not
Right.
consenting, fully consenting.
So yeah, I think we get this, and I think a lot of it stems from purity culture, right? Like
Oh yeah.
I grew up a staunch Southern Baptist in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Ugh, love that for
Ew.
you.
Um, and now I am what I call a spicy atheist. Other folks may term it as a member of of TST, Satanic Temple, things
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
that. But I'm fully okay with that. Like I tell people, yeah, like I'm a member of the Satanic Temple. No, I don't believe in the devil, right?
Right.
For me, it's like, it's just because I don't like the idea of I'm an atheist, but I really like pissing people off. Honestly, that's
I love
me.
it.
Like, I'm that guy. I'm like, oh, you're a Christian. Come on into my house. Let me make you cry. You know.
Yep.
Um. So but one of the things about that is like they have 7 tenets, and for me, those 7 tenets, one of them being like my body is my business, right? Like, and I'm paraphrasing obviously because that's just those tenets are great, but like I can paraphrase. My body, my business. You don't get to tell me what I can and can't do with my body, nor can I tell you what you can and can't do with your body. And at the same time, if I want to do something with your body, I need to have your consent. And for me, consent is not yes, okay, it's hell yes. So it's
Yep.
not yes, but hell yes, right? That's what I need for consent, right? And so we get into those phrases that we're not teaching that to women, right? Like
Nope.
we teach guys, go get her, tiger, right? But we don't teach women. I mean, but we teach women that if you sleep around before you're married, you're a
Yep. You're a
hoe.
dirty little whore.
And let's be real, man. Some of the best people on the planet are hoes, man. Like
They're
that's
my
just
favorite.
all it
Yes.
is. I'm also really big on the decrim movement. Like for me, I think it's vital to
Absolutely.
decriminalize sex work, because if we truly want to get rid of human trafficking and sex trafficking, we need somebody on our side that is
Yeah.
actually in there, right? Like that
Yep.
is able to see it on a daily basis, right? And I think that selling things is okay, sex is okay, so selling sex to me, it's a no-brainer, right?
Right.
Like I don't get it, like except for that brings you back to that religiosity patriarchal society that says no, you got to be a perfect little angel.
Yep.
Really?
And capitalism, when you think about like laborious jobs, like ones where you are like working and working and working, I think of like care service people who are literally like using their body for everything they do. And like, what's the difference between somebody who's like literally killing themselves with physical labor versus somebody who's having sex? Like, you're still using your body in exchange for money.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And honestly, let's be real too, like there are a lot of mothers that are sex workers also, like
Yeah.
and the amount that they get shamed for doing like, and we're even going to survival sex work, right? So like we talk
Yep.
about survival sex work, and they're getting shamed for doing what they need to do to survive and to take care of their kids.
Right.
And yet our capitalistic society, if we truly want to get them out of that survival sex work industry, then hey, maybe here's an idea: make sure that we're providing for them so that she doesn't have to.
Exactly. And if she wasn't providing for them, she would also be getting shamed. So it's a lose-lose
Yeah,
situation.
so I really like the idea of working with moms, because like I'm kind of a mama's boy, so like I really like the idea of helping moms, because without moms we wouldn't be here. Like all your dad had to do was just a little squirt, man. Like your mom has to go
Exactly.
through the work, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
so like I really do, I am vulgar sometimes, I admit this freely, like freely, I am the
Quite all
vulgar
right.
human. But like the idea is the same, is that our women, they need to be treasures, and not our treasures. They need to be their own treasures. They need to be able to treasure themselves, and we need to give them the opportunity, or we need to empower them to do that, right? We need to not to have a savior complex, but to
Hmm.
be have an empowerment complex. Like we need to, I see it all the time in people. You get that white knight savior attitude, and that's not what I want, right? I want you to help people to empower themselves, to have their own voice. And that's what we need to be doing with moms, right? We need to give them the power to have their own voice, because they don't need me to save them.
Nope.
They may need me to help teach them how to communicate their voice, but they don't need me to save them. So
Right.
let me stick to the job that I need to do, and that is to help them to be empowered so that they use their own voices, because they're going
Yep.
to get more help out of it.
Absolutely.
Kind of passionate about stuff. Sorry, I go on and ramble and
Oh,
ramble
you're
and
good.
ramble.
They're called bunny trails. That's what I call them. I
Oh my
this is
god.
all of my visits with
constantly.
my patients, this is what happens. I'm like, oh, wait, we're done 30 minutes ago. I'm so sorry.
Absolutely. I do that constantly as a therapist. It's horrible. Like my clients are like, "Hey, man, I'm cool with it. I got an extra 30 minutes that you're not going to charge me for." I'm like,
Right?
"You're right. You're absolutely right. You're like I'm totally not charging you when I went down the trail, dude. That's not happening." So, yeah. But so tell me a little bit about menopause, man. Like I see some of the effects of it whenever I'm watching my wife or trying to be there for my wife and things like that whenever it comes to mother, because there's a common misconception that you have to be a certain age to go through menopause, which is absolutely not correct, because there are certain time frames, obviously,
Yep.
but there are cases where it happens younger, especially after traumatic birthings and having I guess having
Hysterectomies.
hysterectomies and things
Hmm.
like that, right? So like let's talk about menopause and some of the ways that going through menopause that women can still be able to feel sexy and to feel that and to feel those kind of things.
Yeah. So first I want to tell you a funny story about my menopause education. Um, when I was in doing my grad program to become a nurse midwife, I was pregnant with my third baby and I gave birth to him. Um, and when he was 6 weeks old, I started the menopause course. And it wasn't very long. I was also going through a thyroid crisis at the time, and I
Mhm.
was just a complete mess. I had never considered dropping a course in my life, but every time I opened this stupid menopause book, I cried because I was like, I can't fucking believe that I'm going to have to go through this. Like, I was devastated, and I did the bare minimum. I still somehow got an A in that class, which have no idea because I swear I knew nothing about menopause. And anytime patients would come in to see me, where I work, there were a couple of providers who were older and like seemed to know more about menopause. So I would always, make sure everything was safe and then be like, okay, we're going to schedule you with one of the providers who does like menopause care. Fast forward to like 2020, I think it was, which was like 5 years after my education. And bouncing plenty of people in menopause to other people. I came across a urologist on Instagram, Rachel Rubin, and she just like opened up my eyes. And, she was talking a lot about perimenopause, which I feel like I didn't even really, that wasn't even on my radar. It was like everything just gets lumped into menopause.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was like, perimenopause is about 10 years before menopause. And so for a lot of people, that can start as early as like the mid 30s. And at this time, I was in my mid 30s and I was like, holy shit, like I
Mm-hmm.
know nothing. And I am the type of person who, if I'm going through something, I need to know everything. It's why I'm a midwife, because I was pregnant and I was like, I don't want to read birthing books. I want to read textbooks because I want to know how to do everything for myself. And I want to know what's going on. So that started my menopause journey. And I then have since gone on to do multiple courses and certifications for menopause. And yeah, so that's the biggest thing is like people don't realize that you're going most likely in perimenopause in your mid, maybe late 30s. A lot of times before people even really start, or by the time people start talking about like, oh, maybe I'm going through menopause, I'm like, you are like in the thick of it. And so menopause itself
Mm-hmm.
is really only a day. So perimenopause is all the time leading up to menopause, like the 10 years
Mm-hmm.
leading up. Menopause is the 12 months after you've completed 12 full months without getting a period. And then the day
Right.
after that, you're in postmenopause. So I
Yeah.
laugh when we say menopause, but we really mean these three different stages. Really, we're mostly talking about perimenopause for most people right now. Um, but yeah, the symptoms of perimenopause are very similar to postpartum for many people, especially breastfeeding postpartum. You have these like drops in hormones, your estrogen and progesterone. They're dropping, but they can also fluctuate. So you have these like hormonal fluctuations. Your mood is all over the place. You can have hot flashes. As far as like sexual health, like those things alone, your mood and the hot flashes can affect your sex life. But also, then you go into your vulva and your vagina and the lack of estrogen there kind of, for lack of a better way to describe it, things can shrivel and dry up. Like you literally can lose your labia minora, the inner labia. When I see patients who are postmenopausal, I can tell you that person didn't ever have. So what we give for that disorder is vaginal estrogen, and it rejuvenates the
Mm-hmm.
tissues and makes
Mm-hmm.
things feel better, but also it's protective against UTIs and infections, and really just keeps the bladder health not all the bladder health, but the outer part of the bladder structures intact. And yeah, so it's just like wild to me to see these generations who had no menopause care whatsoever. And right now, menopause is having a moment. Like anywhere you look, you're going to see something about menopause. Like it is like a cool thing to talk about. And I am so glad that this is the time that I am in perimenopause. And I'm so glad to like feel confident treating my patients and my coaching clients too. But the other thing that I find is that a lot of the people who I see, because they're having babies later in life now, I'm seeing people who are postpartum and in perimenopause. And
Right.
that's something that also was never taught in my nurse practitioner programming. And it's just like fascinating to me. And it's still, a lot of people don't realize it. And they're like, well, is it postpartum? Why do I still feel like this? And I'm like, well, you are postpartum, but you're also, a year or 2 years out, you're probably also perimenopausal. Um, so yeah, from a sexual health concern, especially if they're, have the two overlapping things right there, like it makes sense that they don't want to have sex and like it's the last thing on their mind. I forget what the question was.
No, I
Did
think
I answer?
you covered it beautifully. You covered it beautifully. I want to also add that because you did talk about changes in the vulva, something that
Yeah.
men don't know what. So I mean that most men do not have a clue of is like there are if you don't have the right hormone balance or the hormones correct, right? Like I'm just
Yep.
speaking
Yep.
like a dude, so just
Yeah. You're doing great.
but there is going to be vaginal dryness, but it not just vaginal dryness.
Yep.
The skin also becomes a lot more vulnerable, so it can tear, it can rip a little bit easier. And like so sex doesn't feel good. So one thing that I always tell people, like for always, regardless of if you're in menopause or not, I'm a lube guy, right? Do
Yep.
lube.
Yep.
Always do lube, regardless of if you're getting wet enough and all that stuff. I feel like you can't really have too much lube, like in my
Nope.
opinion. So like
I
I
always tell
just
people live, laugh, lube. I don't know who I heard that from, but I was like, that is the funniest thing ever. And I tell that to my patients. I'm
yeah.
like, put it on the wall, live, laugh, lube.
Well, I'm like, and guys, like sometimes you might have these guys that say, "Well, I should be able to make her wet enough." And I'm like,
Yep.
no. That's not. You don't change human bodies, homie. Like you just don't. So, like for me, I look at it a little bit different. Is like that extra lube is gonna do her good and me good, man. Like that's
Yeah.
gonna be happy time for both of us. So why bitch, right? I
Yep.
think that's more about ego, and I lost mine years ago. So
Hmm.
like we're good, But I mean, so lube up, vaginal, like there are moisturizers and things like that. Vaginal moisturizers, I think those are really important when you're going through perimenopause, menopause, just to make sure that you can keep some of the elasticity in your tissues. But also like again, going whether it's menopause or perimenopause or post postmenopause, sorry, or whether it's just after birth and things like that, because things change. Birth is damaging as fuck to y'all's bodies, man. It
Yeah.
really is. And men are not as aware of it, right? Like they don't seem to understand it as much, but it's very damaging. And
Yeah.
so men like myself have to educate other men about that like more. And that's something that one of the biggest reasons that I wanted to have you on, like so that I can offer people who might not normally listen to your stuff or see your stuff, like offer them like an understanding. So because you work with mothers and because you are a mother, right?
I sure am.
So personal experience and professional experience, right? Can you talk to people about some of the ways that the female body is damaged and ways that we can help our female partners to still feel sexy when they feel like their body is trash? Because let's be real, when your body undergoes changes like that, right? Like it can have a significant impact on your self-esteem. So as partners, what can the partners do, whether they're male, whether they're female, whether they're non-binary, like whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is first learning about what happens to a person's body when they are pregnant. I think a lot of people think that, it's just a baby growing in your uterus, in the abdomen, and then it comes out and things go back to normal. But What really happens is it affects every single organ system down to your cells. It affects your brain. You can tell a person who's been pregnant on MRI versus a person who's not been pregnant on MRI. And then when you go through birth, I mean, it is just one of, as somebody who's done it 4 times, 2 of the times without any medication, it's insane. Like you are literally having, like, think about pushing a bowling ball out of your butthole. Like, can you imagine like being like, okay, let's go back to having, I mean, actually, I shouldn't say that because I know that some people that is like a kink type thing, but maybe not the greatest
I
analogy.
mean, and
But
we
you know,
don't kink shame here. Hey, do your
right,
thing,
right.
boo,
No
right?
shame to people who do, but you know, something that is also like not necessarily warmed up to do. You know, once the
Right.
baby's coming out, it's relatively a quick process. The laboring part isn't, but most times when you're pushing a baby out, it's coming out within a few hours. Um, but yeah, you have risk to not risk, but like there's always not necessarily damage, but there's always going to be some sort of disruption. I like to use that word
Mhm.
better to the pelvic floor, and your pelvic floor is comprised. I used the wrong word. Comprised of so many
Comprised, yeah.
muscles, so much, so many blood vessels, nerves, so many things, and like just from pregnancy alone, you have at least 20 pounds sitting in your pelvic floor that you don't normally have pushing on your bladder. You also have changes to your urinary system that increase your risk for urinary tract infections. You also have a higher risk for vaginal infections like bacterial vaginitis and yeast infections. So, like, sometimes I see people in pregnancy and the whole pregnancy, they're just being treated for vaginal infections. And when you have those infections, it itches, it burns, it smells really fucking bad. And it, like, you have weird discharge. And, like, who's going to want to have sex during that time? And the interesting part is they just found out, not we've known this, but the studies just proved what we've all known, is that men can actually cause BV for women. So, like, a lot of times, not a lot of times, always, historically, we treat women for bacterial vaginitis. And really, they're finding that men need to be treated as well because they're just passing it back on to them.
Yeah.
And then you go through the birthing process, whether it's through your vagina or through a C section. Either way, you are going through so many layers of tissue. Your pelvic floor, again, gets another beating. Your nerves, again, another beating. Your bladder, another beating. And then with the C-section, there's so many risks there. I mean, there's chance of them cutting into your bladder. There's chance of them cutting into your bowel. I had a patient who they accidentally nicked the bowel and she ended up being in the hospital for months. Like resection, bowel resection, all the while
Mhm.
like her baby's home and like just so many crazy things that can happen during it. And even when none of those things happen and everything goes as normal as can possibly be, which all of my births were as normal as possible, it still feels fucking awful after you have the baby. Like at least for a week. And then even after that, things just feel weird. Like you don't just take a big watermelon from a fruit bowl that's covered, like, the bottom of it has blueberries and raspberries. I always give this analogy. The blueberries and raspberries are the nerves and the blood vessels. And the watermelon is the baby. You put it on there, it's squishing everything. But then you take it out, the blueberries and raspberries aren't just gonna like perk back up. They're smushed. Like they need
Yeah.
time. You'd probably really just need to replace them. I need a better analogy for the second part.
Right.
Um, and then you go into after the baby comes out, you have a whole cascade of hormones that are changing and that affects you physically, but also mentally, emotionally. Your mood and emotions are all over the place. And then you have sleep deprivation thrown in there, which I don't know, I'm sure maybe you remember. I'm still traumatized from it. And my kids were terrible sleepers. They barely sleep well now.
So
And
I was the one who got up with my son, man. Like
I love that. Good.
my ex-wife, my ex-wife did so much during the day, and like I slept mostly during the day. And so I worked mostly at night, but
Mhm.
um I was able to work from home. So like if the baby got up, like I got up and I did eh, I got up and I got up with him and held him and things like that. And she had already pumped for me, right? So like
Yep.
I had all that. So I'd make sure that that was set up and ready to go too. Like for me, it was just one of those things that was a really good bonding experience for me, which is probably why me and my son are so tight,
Mm-hmm.
because that was a really good bonding experience for me.
Yeah.
And I wish more guys did it. I really do, just because like guys are really typically really good about, hey, I can be a provider, da 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 da, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't offer a lot when it comes to the emotional part, right? And like I
Right.
really want more men to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Um, I want to go back to a couple things because, like, one of the things that I work on is shame. I mean, one of the things as a therapist I like to work on is shame and also self-esteem. And when we
Mm-hmm.
go back to the vaginitis, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so many men think when someone has vaginitis and they don't understand it, they smell an aroma. And
Mm-hmm.
so many men are like, oh, well, she's just dirty. She's just a dirty, I mean, she's just slutty and things like that. And I'm like, and I had a girlfriend that had that one time, and so I took it upon myself to kind of learn because she told me what it was, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? So I'm that guy, right? Like if I hear something, I need to research it because that's
Mm-hmm.
me. And so I was able to do that, and like she would get all self conscious and like, "Baby, don't. Don't. We can't do anything."
Oh,
And I'm like, look. We won't do anything because I don't want to make this worse on you. But let's figure out some things we can do. Because guess what? Just because I can't penetrate you, like I can still cuddle you. So if my wife, just like my wife now, like if she isn't feeling it like that, I'm like, hey, do you want to cuddle? Right? Like, do you want to
yeah.
back rub? You want to do like the world, like that's my thing. Like my wife's sex is back rubs. That she loves them so much, she's like, I don't need
Same.
sex,
No, same.
just rub my back, man. And I'm like, all right, I got you, homie. So I mean, I think that's part of it, is just recognizing, like, I think it's important, really, really important for men to recognize more things about like what it's like to be a mom, right? Like a lot of us look at our moms like they're freaking gods, man. Like to me, my mom was, but that's us mama's boys, right? Like you can do no wrong, da 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 da. But we still don't understand what it is to be a mom. We still don't
Yeah.
understand how, like, let's face it, when you're a kid and you think about your mom having sex, that's fucking
It's
gross and nobody
gross.
wants to
Yeah.
think about that, right? But like when we get older, it's like, look, I see all these moms that have put on extra weight because of the pregnancy, and they're struggling to get it off, and
Hmm.
they're not feeling sexy, right?
Yeah.
They're not, so when we talk about your courses and stuff like that, like tell me a little bit about like how those like what kind of courses you offer to increase self-esteem, to help them to find comfort within themselves, like as a therapist I would probably assign them to do a mirror technique and
Hmm.
look at their vulva, and say, look, I know that you're going to pick out every little thing that you hate about it. What I want you to do is find two things that you like about it. I don't want you to focus on what you don't like. I want you to search out what you like about
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, so the course is broken down into 8 weeks, and one of the weeks is all about coming back into your body. And this can be for people who like had babies 20 years ago, because
it.
they may not
Absolutely.
have ever felt like they bounced back. And I also really like to tell people that there's no such thing as bouncing back. Your body changes during pregnancy. You're literally physically not the same person you were before you had a baby. So I tell people, focus on rolling forward into the new you instead of trying to get back to the person you were before. So anyway, during the that course, we talk about, first we go through, why do we feel shame about our bodies? Where is it coming from? And of course, it always goes back to patriarchy. We talk about
Absolutely.
patriarchal beauty standards, colonized beauty standards as well. And a lot of times just learning that it's men who are making us feel this way. I'm not saying it's like a magic cure for people, but it definitely flips on a different switch of like allowing new information of like different ways of thinking about your body to kind of be available to you.
Okay, let me
One of,
say, can I
uh-huh.
say one
Yeah,
thing to
yeah,
our listeners, right? I want to say it
absolutely.
directly to the male listeners. I don't want you guys to say not all men, okay? I need you guys to not say not all men, because it is enough men that it is still a problem. And unless you're fighting against it, then you are part of that group.
Yes, absolutely. No, I
So
love
just don't
that.
say it. Don't say not all men. Say, you know what? Say, I'm sorry, how can I help? Instead of
Yep.
not all men, I'm sorry, how can I be better for you?
Yes. No, I love that.
Okay. Sorry, I wanted
But
to
yeah,
jump in
no,
there
you're
because I hear
good.
that shit all the time. I used to be the guy that said not all men until I, actually, started figuring some shit out.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I love it. And I love when men can recognize like that it's a problem, and then they move on to it, and then they help other men to understand why it's a problem, to say that.
What's that whole that woman feeling is
I
safer with
know.
a bear comment? Like, I was
Yep.
like, well, that makes sense because typically it's not bears that are killing millions. I mean, well, and maybe I'm exaggerating, I don't know, like thousands and thousands of women. It's not the
Yeah.
bear that they're not getting killed by bear attacks. So of course they don't feel as threatened by a bear, because honestly, they're probably not around bears all the time. They are around men all the time.
Right.
So men are the bigger threat.
Yep. And I also so it's funny, the first time I told my husband that, my husband is very just like the most pro woman before I would even have called myself pro woman. Like before I even knew my worth as a woman, he knew it and has always. But when I brought him that analogy, he was like, of course you would choose the man. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, are you serious? He was like, yeah, the bear could kill you. And I'm like, yeah, but what are the odds of that compared to a man? I was like, also, the bear's not gonna rape me, and like the bear's not gonna, torture me and like put me through emotional abuse. Like if
It'll
I feel
probably
like
be
I'm on
fairly quick.
right, that's what I said. I was like, I'm not gonna be tortured by a bear. I'm gonna be killed very quickly. And he was like, the like epiphany that went off in his head. I think he still was initially was like, what? And then like really within the last like few years with like the manosphere, the red pill, all that stuff that has come out, he's like, oh, I get it now. Like I wasn't looking at it through that lens. And he just assumed all men were like him. And I was like, no, you are the exception, not the rule. Like there's a
Well, that's
reason
why
you're
we
married.
don't
I'm married to you.
that's why we don't say not we shouldn't say not all men. Like being an
Exactly.
exception doesn't mean that it's not all men. It means that, hey, you're lucky enough as, or I mean, you're good enough as a guy to not do those things. But men in general, absolutely. That's why we don't say not all men. They say, and if you are a feminist male, you say, look, you know what, my species, or my species, I like to say species,
Yep.
I know that's
It's a
not
good
it,
one.
but my species, we are responsible for most female deaths, man. We really
Yeah.
are.
Yep.
And so to sit here and say that not all men, let's not do that. Let's talk about, instead of saying not all men and being defensive, let's say, you know what? How can we help?
Yep. Yep.
Because men can help. And that's the thing. If you stop saying not all men and start asking people, how can I help? That's the same thing with race, right? Like, not all
Yep.
white people are racist. Not all white people are colonizers. First off, actually, yes, they are colonizers.
We are.
That's a
It's
fact.
a fact. It is a fact.
That's a fact. But what makes you a good person is not the same thing that makes you a colonizer, right? So let's focus on what is making you a good person. Well, I recognize in Canada, I recognize like the traumas that happened at those residential schools. So I
I
do my
know.
best to fight for everything that is reconciliation. And as an American, I try to inform people, because most people don't realize, they think that was a Canadian problem. There were plenty of nasty residential schools in the States,
Yeah.
and not to mention my people on my father's mother's side, right? Like, we're Cherokee Indian. We were on that Trail of Tears. I had ancestors on the Trail of Tears, and some of them died, right? So like, you have to get to that place of saying, yes, like part of my genetic makeup is the genetic makeup of colonizers. It's a fact. It is what it is.
Yep.
What can we do? Well, we can fight with them instead of fighting for the colonizers. We can
Right.
say, you know what, I admit that my people were colonizers, and I admit that I have benefited from that. I want to know how can I help you?
Exactly. Yeah. I know. White people. I'm always like, white people. They're so fun to be around and try to educate. People get mad. I have a couple of shirts that say things about colonization and being a colonizer, and that those shirts get people so angry more than anything else that I wear, that, I always like wear my political views and things on my shirts. And
Yeah.
yeah, but I always laugh. I'm like, this is the one. If I want to stir some shit up, yep.
I
This
wear
is the one.
Godzilla, man.
I
Like,
love it.
I'm just a big lizard, right? So, anyways, no, I mean, you're right though. You are right. You're absolutely right, and you should stir shit up. Like, we all need to be stirring shit up. Like right
Yeah.
now, we need to be doing the most stirring of shit possible, right?
Yep.
Because right now it's all Americans right now are in danger, man. Every fucking one of them, even the
Yep.
ones that supported
That's
this
the, I feel
administration,
like those are
are
almost the
still
ones that
in
are going to be,
danger.
yep, they're going to be impacted almost. I feel like they're going to get the brunt of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With mothers too, I think I'd like to kind of know, like, what when we're talking about our male listeners and things like that, like
Mhm.
if you could say anything as a person who works with mothers, helping them to improve their self-esteem and their self-worth and things
Yeah.
like that, especially their own sexual empowerment, like what do you say to males so that they get that, like if they're smart, they know that they're part of the problem, right?
Yep.
But also at the same time, what can they do to not to help their female counterparts, right? Because like
Yeah.
I want to see women on the same footing period as men, right? Like I want them to be on the exact same footing, right? And I don't, until they are, then it's not, then we're not in the right place.
Yeah. My quick, my deep answer is unlearn patriarchy. Learn it, but unlearn all the things that you've been conditioned to
Yeah.
do and think. I think once that happens, most men really the men who I meet who truly understand what patriarchy is and how it affects everybody are the ones who I feel like are in the best relationships and the best with women. I mean, I'm speaking specifically for cis heterosexual relationships in this conversation right now,
Absolutely.
um, but yeah, other things, once you have that unlearning, I think it becomes easy because you're looking at your partner as an equal, right? You're not looking at this hierarchy where you're above them. You are going to be participating in the care work that you do, especially with kids. It's going to be more equal because women do 70% of the domestic labor in relationships. Not just like the physical domestic labor, like doing dishes, washing laundry, but like
The
all the
emotional
thinking,
work.
planning, organizing, emotional, all of that. And
Yeah.
that goes into their confidence too, right? Like all these like things that people don't think about go into body confidence. Like if your body is literally just being used to care for all these people and you have zero appreciation that you feel from your partner, and you usually aren't really feeling it from your kids, especially as your kids get a little bit older, maybe when they're young and toddlers and worship the ground you walk on, but it's like a thankless work that you're doing and that affects your self-worth. So those things also help as well, but again, you know appreciation, like making sure that you take the time each day to tell your partner that you appreciate them and how much they're how much you value their body and how amazing their body is and what it's done. And when it comes to sex, like really learning their body and what they like and communicating with them, like, does this feel good, and not being offended. Like that's so many men get offended, like, oh, you don't like that, oh, I'm because it's
Right.
embarrassment, right? Like
Right.
that's what I see ruin people. Like, oh, I don't want her to use toys because I'm not good enough. Like just dumb shit where I'm like, no, like that's not how that works.
So
Um,
so little thing for those guys. You're really missing out
it's so much fun.
on a tool that can make your life better. Okay, just
Yep.
let's be real, because most men are not lasting for hours, and there is an orgasm gap, right? Let's be real about that.
Huge.
Like guys, dude, you can probably get off in 10 minutes, like maybe less. We're gonna go with 10 minutes just to be nice.
Yep.
um Women, it takes typically 20 to 40 minutes to get to orgasm, and that again is being nice. Like it could take more if you're not real handy, okay? And so I think too, recognizing that those toys are an amazing tool. Like I've went shopping with my wife to get them. They got some cool fucking toys, man, looking
So fun.
like lizard things, and like
Yep. Yep.
I
Oh, I
saw
know
one.
exactly which ones you're talking about. They're like jello-y, like silicone. They have,
I
oh my
seen
gosh.
one. I seen one that I'm a nerd, right? So I've seen these toys that are designed from Captain America, the Hulk. That, oh my god, I fell in love with them. I was like, that's fucking amazing. I want them for myself. Not that
Yeah,
I'm going to use them, but if I wanted to, I could.
right. They're
You know,
there.
but it's the fact of saying, holy shit, I have a Captain America dildo. Bite me, asshole. Right? They're amazing.
No, it
They're
is fun.
amazing. And recognizing too, like something that I see all the time, and it used to really affect me, because there are some women who don't make a lot of sound when they're
Yep.
having sex until they orgasm, and then once they orgasm, they're like, you know, when you can get them there, right? So that's why it's really important to pay attention to the gyration of the hips when you're like, say you are performing cunnilingus. Pay attention to the way their hips are gyrating, because that gives you an idea of where they want your tongue to move, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like pay attention to the person that your partner, your sexual partner.
Yeah.
Pay attention to their movements. Pay
Yeah.
attention to everything, because they're also going to pull away if they don't like something.
Yep.
Right. So if you will pay attention to the subtleties, because it may not be something that is like hugely like very, very noticeable. You have to really pay attention. And the more you actually pay attention to that things from your lover, like, that is going to add connection to your relationship, because they're going to know that you're paying attention to what feels good to them and not just to yourself.
Yep.
Okay, sorry. My little rants.
No, I love it.
I talk about this stuff with my male clients all the time. Like, look, your junk ain't all it ain't all that, man. Like, you can have the massive baby arm looking thing, that's fine. But let's be real, like, it ain't all that. Like, you really need to learn a few things. And honestly, I know women that would prefer to have a smaller person that is more in tune with their needs than someone who's got a 5-foot dong, man. Like, let's be real about it, right?
5 foot, yes. No, exactly. But you said too, with just like listening and being in tune with them, like that carries over into all aspects of life, right? Like the more you're paying attention to your partner, the more you're gonna have a better connection when it comes time to have any sort of like sexual interaction.
I really like too, and I think it's really important. Like, so I'm a big sensate focus guy. I love sensate focus, one of my favorite things on the planet, because like, it's not always genital touch, it's just that touch, right?
Yeah.
And for me, like, when I'm if you rub your spouses or your lovers' backs, and you get to touch their skin, like, this is the thing, right? Like, it's definitely enjoyable, typically enjoyable to them. But if you let yourself like really pay attention to the sensation of their skin when you're rubbing it, dude, that's amazing, man. It's so much fun. And then that is sex, right? Like, people don't get it, right? Sex is not just penetration. People think when you're thinking about sex, you're thinking about penetration and that's it. And that's where we've lost so much, right? It's sex is intimate connection, period.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we look at it that way, then maybe we can start helping our the mothers that we love, right? Maybe we start helping them feel appreciated and helping them get to a place where they're able to have orgasm, or maybe if we learn how to seduce their minds before we try to play with their bodies, then maybe at that point they're able to produce more, self-lubricate a little bit more, right? And if they're not, don't be afraid of saying, hey, let's hit the lube, baby. I mean, it's all those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think that's such a good point, because there's no like, I think people come for like sex help and they think it's like a quick fix of it must be this problem and here's the solution, when really it's like so many pieces to a puzzle. And, sure, things can maybe work with some of the pieces missing, but the more pieces you have in the puzzle put in there, like the better it's going to be and the better the puzzle is going to look, the puzzle being your sex life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. I really, really do.
My
I would
pleasure.
love to have you on again anytime. So
Sure.
if you feel it, just let me know. And next time I'll try to work up more of a line of questioning. I like
No, you're fine.
I really like free flow, just because it's more conversational. And as a therapist, that's me. Like, I'm way more conversational than I am, so I hear you saying this, and this. That's
Right.
fucking annoying.
It's so annoying.
I talk like a normal person, my client, because I am a normal person. Well,
Yeah.
I'm kind of normal, but it is what it is, right? But thanks for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. And guys, this has been the Sexy Nerd Podcast. If you want to check out Don Moore's Insta page, I'm asked Don,
Mm-hmm.
any of the outlets that you want people to be able to find you, just go ahead and can you list those off for us right now?
Yep. So the two main ways right now, Instagram, it's just Mama Comes First. And then the website is mamacomesfirst.net because somebody else has .com, but it expires this summer. So I'm hoping to grab it from them. They don't use it. It's not actually anything.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this has been the Sexy Nerd Podcast. And thanks for nerding out with me and Dawn. I appreciate it, guys. Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Mm. Mm.